Welcome back to the channel. Got a super exciting video coming up for you today. We are interviewing Mike Pilon with Endeavour Sports Group. Mike Pilon was the coaching coordinator here in the late 90s when I was a young kid, and he was an assistant coach with the Wyoming Outlaws junior program. Learned a lot about hockey from Mike, and he taught me a lot about the game. So I'm so excited to catch up with him, see what he's up to, and get his take on what he thinks about the game of hockey nowadays. Want to remind you, if you haven't yet, make sure you like the video. It helps out the channel a ton. Hit the subscribe button and make sure you get the bell notification along with it so you're updated whenever we post new videos to the channel. It's great to talk to you again, Mike. Can you just give everybody a rundown of what you've been up to since you left Casper?
I started in Casper at 22 years old. So I was, it's funny. I think one of the things we talked about for some of the questions you had given me that I wrote down that, life experience in general gives you perspective. And yeah, it's one thing after being in hockey for 26 years now, that's all I've done. It's definitely offered up some of that. But following Jack's, I did my coaching work there with them, helped start the wall and start the player development program in Wyoming when I was with Casper. And I was very fortunate to be, a part of an organization there in Casper that at that time was fairly progressive in terms of hiring a coaching coordinator and doing different things like that, and got a chance to work with Team Wyoming and different things like that as well. And then move on to played some senior A hockey with the Jackson Hole Moose as well. Following that, I actually left Casper and moved to Chicago and worked for a team called the Chicago Freeze. In Chicago, I was fortunate to work with some great players like Craig Anderson, George Peros, John Scott, and it was fantastic. Then from there, we were in the NAL at the time, the North American League, but at that time, it was also something that we competed against the USHL for the national championship. So a little bit different on that end, right? Then from there, after 5 years, the team was sold, and I ended up moving back to Ottawa. I'd had a daughter at that point, and actually got back into it a couple years later. And Andy Murray and Ray Bennett were in coaching the LA Kings, and when they got fired, Ray became the 18U coach for the LA Junior Kings. And when he got hired in St. Louis, I guess it was probably 5 months later, they needed a coach for the LA Junior Kings. So they called me and asked me if I would be willing to move to LA and coach a team. And, I had two kids at the time, both under the age of 3. One was under a year. And I spoke to my wife one day and said, "Hey, what do you think? How about, how do you feel about, actually the call was hilarious. I said, 'Oh, you never guess who called today.' The LA team called, and she said, 'Well, what did you tell them?' I said, 'No.' I said, 'I've got family.' And she goes, 'Well, how much did they offer you?' I said, 'I didn't even get to that point.' She said, 'Well, call them back.' And so she was fantastic, and we went out there, and it presented a great opportunity for me moving forward here with everything else in my life. And so I spent a year out there, and then came back, and I was coaching for the University of Ottawa as an assistant coach, and then also working for something called Huron Hockey School, which was something that I've been trying to get into Wyoming way back then. I was the general manager of that for a couple of years, and then honestly, I did some work for a company called Point Streak as well. I was still working for another company out of Chicago which back when you were playing, we were running those major showcase events, EHK Sports way back then. Yeah, yeah, yep. And we were running that, so I was running that and the like sort of a scouting website for them. And then from that point, I went from there to kind of decided that it was December 17th, and I didn't like the direction. I didn't really like what I was doing, and I said, "Hey," I had started Endeavour Sports Group at that time, just as almost like a hockey school company, but I was representing 4 players, and at the time I had a boy from Chicago named Mike Santee, a player from Pennsylvania named Bryce Johnson, a kid from San Jose who was my very first client by the name of Matt Tennyson, who is still playing in the NHL right now. And I decided, hey, I'm going to take this full time. So I quit my job on December 17th and took it full time. And that was now almost 17 years ago.
Could you give us a rundown of what Endeavour Sports Group is and what services that you offer to teams and players?
So I've been doing that. And then in Endeavour Sports Group, obviously, like anything else, is sort of morphed into something that, started with 4 players where we represent, over the course of the last 16 years, we've probably had hundreds of players that have gone on to play college hockey, and a select few of those have gone on to play in the NHL. But by the time they're going to do that, they're not with us anymore. They're signing with the big dogs and stuff, and that's not what my goal really was. My goal was to help players find opportunities and mentor them moving forward, and that's sort of where life finds me now. Still, I'm based out of Ontario now, and I travel just about everywhere. I mean, up until COVID. But predominantly after that, I mean, I'm gone just about every weekend. I travel to the U.S. and different parts of Canada, primarily the U.S. We have a lot of American clients, so we spend a lot of time in the U.S. It started when we did it. We were doing coach mentoring. So I was also a hockey director for an organization called the Gloucester Rangers back here. So I coach mentored their coaches for 11 years here back in Ottawa, up until just about several years ago. And we were doing hockey schools and different things like that throughout the year, and a lot of clinics. And I say that when you're younger and you're a little bit more spry to be able to do these things all the time and a little bit more. But as your kids get older and life just your body's not doing the things it can do. But our staff grew equally. But here where I live right now, the competition is quite extensive for the clinic stuff. And with the new rules that Hockey Canada and everybody come up with, we just said we're going to focus solely on the advising part and working with that. So right now, primarily, we work with athletes all across North America and Europe. We've got an Austrian player, we've got a Hungarian player, we've got a couple of English kids. So we do that, and then I still do a camp every year in England. I go back to England every summer. Last summer was the first time in about 7 years we hadn't done it, but I've been doing it for, I bet you 15 years we've been going over to England. So I still do those, have a blast. We have a great staff over there. Actually, our main point of contact now is the head coach of the Great Britain women's team. So we've helped him with some of the things that we can do to help offer our group over there and help with them. But that's it. Like, that's the only real hockey camp. Then we may do some hit and miss if people ask us to do work out here, but our time is primarily focused on right now the advising and mentoring program, which we offer to athletes, and our youngest athlete would be about 14, right up to about 20.
Mike, being an evaluator, an advisor, and a coach as long as you have at high level hockey, can you tell us what you're looking for as far as specific traits and character in the players that you coach and evaluate?
Yeah, I think in the majority of all of our athletes, you ask them, like, their goal is to try to play Division I college hockey. That's what they would all love and aspire to do. When you talk to colleges right now, that one of the biggest things, I think the things that jump off the page obviously are skating. The ability to skate is, and especially in today's game, which is so fast. Skating is a real big piece of that. And for me, and even the college guys, compete level. Like, we want to see guys who want to be first to the puck. And if they lose it, well, then they're going to work hard to get it back. And not always being surgical. I mean, you can be surgical, but you better have the skill to back it up, because you can't just be surgical. I think obviously a player's ability to think the game, and not just with the puck, but away from the puck, and create options that way. And I know that comes from a lot of coaching still, but or even just playing the game that they start to think it. But IQ is a really important one, just to see how they think. Do they see the ice? Like, um, I love passing ability. Obviously, like a player that you see so much work on the summers now. The players are stick handling this and stick handling that, but passing is kind of a lost art, and the ability to make a pass on a backhand is even more attractive to me. So to be deceptive like that, and then I think little things when you start delving a little bit deeper and watching, like, does a player make other players better? Does he help them? And then you start examining things like body language. How does he react when they encounter some adversity on the ice, or they get hurt? How do they respond to a coach? When a coach talks to them, that, and then when you start talking about things off the ice and you start really delving into the player, like, how does people talk about them? And I don't want to hear about him as a player. Like, talk to me about him as a person first and foremost. Tell me, what type of person is he? Is he early to the rink? Is he in a good mood? Is he a sponge? Does he enjoy being pushed? How does he interact with teammates? And it doesn't mean that everybody has to be like own a locker room, but overall, like, what would people say about him as a teammate? And then you're going to ask people, like other people, what they think about him as a hockey player. But you're going to make up a lot of your own mind. There's only one puck on the ice, so you still have to have people that are willing to go into the corners and get the puck, and you have to have some people that aren't going to disappear when the going gets tough. There's all these things that come together, and then you're starting to look, when you do your homework on players, about, like, when you ask about the type of people they are, that's important, because that's eventually going to be something that influences culture. And a team with good culture, or a great environment, inevitably will be successful, even if they aren't successful on the score clock.
Mike, you talk about most of your players aspiring to play college hockey. Can you just delve into a little bit about how important education has become into the evaluating and recruiting process at that level?
I already talk about this right now. I mean, there's life education, you know what I mean, and there's book education, and higher learning. It offers. I was fortunate; my parents paid my degree, which allowed me to get into the United States and get a visa to go work in Casper, which is sort of snowballed into everything that I've done right now. And that all started with an education. I think what people and what kids have to understand is that the days of saying that you're just such a good enough hockey player that it's just gonna take me somewhere. Uh, it, you know, Even professional careers right now are finite. Like, you look at the average pro career, like a kid like someone like Sidney Crosby or anybody else like that. uh, those are the exception, not the norm. Like, after those four guys in the team, like, really, like, it's interchangeable. And yeah, and the business of the game is now, like, when I was growing up, it was the average age of a player was like 36, 35. They could play until they're 40. There were players doing that. And their best hockey was from 30 to 36. Now, by the time you're 27, 28, like, that's the prime of your career. Like, that's the peak. And by the time you hit, after that, like, anything else on top of that's gravy, because it's makes more sense to sign young 21, 22-year olds at a lower rate, and see how that happens. If they don't, yeah, and they can go, and they change. So, but I guess, getting back to education, there's a bunch of things. Like, a very small number of people will be, when you look at the numbers, to be able to play Division One ice hockey. Okay, that's great. But there's a lot of other great hockey, Division Three, ACHA club hockey. Like, these are still some amazing experiences for kids. And what they have to understand is that if their academics aren't there at any of these schools, regardless, the amount of schools that are options for you to go to, even, like, decrease significantly with each like point of GPA. You're knocking off a certain amount of schools. And more importantly, which I think people have to understand, is great grades don't equal just opportunities. It equals dollars and cents. We had a goalie here probably, I guess it was 6 years ago, and he played on the worst junior hockey team in Canada. He went 0-26 his final year. Was a great goalie, but played on a really bad team. And he only played against the top. His coaches only played him against the top teams in the league. So he played the top 4 or 5 teams, and his partner got to play all the bottom 6. And so he never had the same opportunity to win. Well, the one thing this kid had going for him is he was a 4.0 student, who had done exceptionally well in school. And he ended up going to play at Oswego State, which is one of the perennial Division III powerhouses in the United States hockey. And he got the presidential scholarship. So he didn't pay a cent to go to school. And people, like, when you start talking about the differences, okay, great. You can get an athletic scholarship at Division I. But you can also get an academic scholarship at Division I, which it turns into money at certain schools. And then you can still get that academics at Division III and at any type of ACHA school. And so for me, academics, what they speak to as well is when it comes to things like IQ, but also your commitment to wanting to be disciplined in that part of your life. Like, I mean, you've got these parts of your life. You got your academics, you got your athletics, and then you've got your social family life, right? Like, things away from the rink. And you can have your athletics up here, but if your academics and social life are down here, like, you can't be all in. Because whatever happened, and God forbid you have an injury, or just, I mean, the amount of players that don't make it there's lots of numbers of people that don't. So it gives you opportunity. I guess that's for me, it provides opportunity. The better you do, the more doors are open for you, and maybe it might not be doors where you saw yourself playing, but it may be the best opportunity for you, either athletically, financially, academically, who knows, right? So, for our guys, that's a big, big sticking point. And a lot of people here, at least in Canada, think they can just make it up. Well, no, it goes right back to grade 9. Like, you have to have this instilled right from the get-go. Ends up speaking a lot to who you are as a player, or as a person. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, it's a testament to who you are, and but like anything else, if they're hockey, I always say that you got to be willing to ask for help, right? Like, so yeah, your players are struggling. Oh, hey, they come to Coach Lee and ask for extra help. What else can I do? Well, it's the same thing in school. Like, you got to be willing to ask for help.
Mike, with your over 20 years experience at high level hockey, what is some advice you can give to our Casper Oiler hockey players when it comes to advancing to that next level?
I think that, especially for a player coming from, and I hate to use the term now, but I still think it applies. Like, Wyoming is still a non-traditional hockey market. All right. Like, it's not, hockey isn't, when you're playing hockey in Casper, Wyoming, you're not playing the most popular sport in town, right? Like, you're giving up everybody there on Friday night lights for the football game, or, the basketball, or anything else like that, that it seems to be more of a, just ingrained in the social fabric in that neck of the woods. I think the biggest thing is to them, and I'd say this to anybody, is commit to the process. Like, if you aspire to do something, okay, commit to the process. And it doesn't mean you have to be there by the time you're 16 or 15 or anything else like that. Like, you think about the process, like in a place like Wyoming, okay, you have obstacles, access to ice, access to elite competition, let's just say, okay, access to skill development opportunities that may be outside of what your normal ice sessions might be. And those are all obstacles, and those are easy things for anybody to sit there and say, well, I just never had the opportunity, I just couldn't do it. And I don't believe in that. You know what I mean? I believe that, there's, with the advent of technology, you can find off ice skating work that you can do. You can get a slide board. You can do a bunch of different work. You can practice your shooting. You can practice your stick handling. Coaches, I know when we were there, because we didn't have enough ice time, like, it was hard for me to run a U18 program and sit there and say, well, I'm going to work on a power play and only have 5 guys at a time while the other guys were like, I didn't want to run my power play that way. So we actually rented a school gym and we ran over and ran the power play in the school gym. And if they didn't allow us to use hockey sticks, like the plastic hockey sticks, then we use a basketball and just talk about patterns and just run the patterns. Okay. So like, I think it's that element of being proactive and not giving yourself any excuses. Like, and no what if. So what if I had just done this? What if I had just done that? So you educate yourself. You know, what are the things I can do there? And the best part is, can you do those things without being told to do those things? Opportunities out there, whether it be pursuing AAA hockey, whether it be even pursuing prep school hockey. And that doesn't mean you have to leave Casper. You can consider doing all these things. You just have to embrace the fact that it may take you a little bit longer to get to where you want to be, because you may be playing a little bit of catch up somewhere. But can you narrow that gap between you and a kid out from Detroit by what you do when nobody's asking? Like, do you have a chance to watch yourself or watch hockey games and pick up patterns? Do you do the extra workouts? Do you do that stuff about that? Do you learn about what are the options when I'm done playing high school? Like, so I finished high school. Sure, I can play an extra year of midget hockey, but if I'm aspire to do something, where do I need to go? And, you know, sure, I want to play in the USHL, the North American Hockey League. Well, the average kid coming from Casper, Wyoming, probably is not going to make that jump right away. You know, they may have to go and invest in some place. And now all of a sudden you're talking with parents that are hearing, what? I'm not going to university, or not going to school right out of university, like right out of high school. Like, what are these 2 to 3 year gap year things that you talk about? Like, he's going to fall behind. Well, you know, they don't need to be in a hurry to get into doing what our parents are done, or we have done. Like, you're fortunate now, that you're able to work in something like with your passion. Okay. I'm not sure when you said what you were doing before you started this was exactly your passion, or that you'd say, hey, I need to be in a hurry to get to school so I can go and do that. No, it's not. Like, you're going to go to school, whether you start at 18 or you start at 21, you're going to go to school. And, you know, or somewhere in between that, right? Like, you go there when you're ready for that. And are you ready to pursue that? Like, we see it all the time with our athletes. Like, we have a lot of players that have gone on to play at schools like, say, Colorado Boulder, CU Boulder, you know, CSU or UNLV. Like, we have guys that pursue club hockey because they're passionate about playing. And there's nothing that, for me, is probably the biggest thing, is just, you know, whatever we're going to do, or any of these players are going to do, is if I'm interested to make that next, you have to be passionate about it, because there are going to be setbacks and there are going to be challenges, but like, don't stop, be passionate, trust the process. And it may not be where you saw yourself or expected yourself to be that fall, but it doesn't mean that you cannot continue to work the ladder. And you've got this window of time to get there, and trust the process. That's all. Like, trust the process, surround yourself with good people, ask questions, you know, do all those things. And I think you'll find yourself. But the other thing is too, the information's out there, right? Like, when I think about that, like in Casper, Wyoming, I mean, when I was there, I mean, the internet had just, like, literally just started. Like, I didn't have the benefit. Yeah, it was dial up, and, you know, if your emails could load within 10 minutes, you were very, very fortunate, right? Like, there was no watching a lot of stuff or anything. So yeah, like, I look at those pieces and I say, like, trust the process, but, you know, learn from as many people, because for as many people I've learned to do the stuff that I'm doing now, for every great person in the game, there may be like a half dozen bad ones that you're going to run into. But don't let it ruin that experience, because one experience with one person can be vastly different the next. Right. And you know, the biggest thing I always talked about too with all of our guys is because when we talk about that passion and that attitude to bring, is that embrace it, because this journey should lead you on something, a path to where, you know, you don't have to play college hockey or be a pro hockey player to find a job in the game. I never played college hockey. I never played pro hockey, but I spent 26 years working in the game, right? And I love it. Like, and I wouldn't trade it a day for anything else, right? So there's opportunities for administrators, referees, coaches, all these things out there. So, and if not, be the person that comes back and gives back. Be the people that are going to be the next set of Casper Oiler coaches or anything else like that, for sure. Good. You're welcome, my man. That's easy, and give my best to everybody back out there in Casper. It's been a long time since I think the last time I set foot in Casper, Wyoming, we were in town. I actually brought my children back to go take a quick peek at. We had flown in for a wedding in Jackson Hole, and we took the day and ran out to Casper, and I showed them the house that I lived at and where we lived and all that kind of stuff, and then I got a kick out of that. So, and that was probably a solid. That was probably almost 10 years ago. So, I'd love to see what it is now. I'm sure it's changed again. Yeah, for sure. I miss it, and I'm thankful for every little bit of time I spent there. Good stuff. So give my best to everybody, okay? And if you need anything else moving forward, you guys let you know you can always reach out.
I want to once again thank Mike Pilon with the Endeavour Sports Group for spending some time with us today here on the channel. We're so grateful for the knowledge and information that he was able to share with us today with over his 20 years of high-level hockey experience. The Oilers that were fortunate to work with Mike when he was our coaching director know how passionate he was and how vital he was to our program when he was involved. He not only developed us as hockey players, but he developed us as human beings as well. Once again, would like to thank Mike. If you haven't yet, make sure you go hit the like button on this video, as it helps out the channel tremendously. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and get that bell notification along with it so you're notified anytime we upload new videos to the channel. Want to remind everybody that our season does start this Sunday, September 12th. We're so excited to see our players back to the rink here as we gear up for the 2021-2022 hockey season. It's a great day for hockey. Let's go Oilers!